The field of forensic science? Yeah, it goes back to a guy named Bertillon. Bertillon was a French scientist who was the first person to apply science to the identification of individuals. And what he used was an anatomical method of measuring. He measured arms, legs, and things like that because his dad was an anthropologist. And so he transferred that information into an identification system, which had always been done by eyewitnesses before. Now he was able to take the measurements of a person, put it into a card catalog, and do this sort of thing. Then came fingerprints. And the other person who was really instrumental in this field as far from a scientific basis was Edmond Locard of the Locard exchange principle. He too was a French scientist. And Locard studied under Bertillon, and Locard studied under another well-known, what they called criminologist in those days, Lescagne. And these were the people. These were the foundation of the application of science to criminal investigations, and it just kind of morphed into a law enforcement thing that included more and more science. Now, the birth of forensic science in this country really came from the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, because they needed to identify the bullets, and that's when they set up the Chicago Crime Laboratory. Yeah, a number of areas of forensic science are coming under fire. These areas of, and I'll get to you directly to your question, these areas have to do with what they call experience-based testing. A lot of this testing is done by police officers who are applying forensic science to the comparison of things like footprints, fingerprints, bite marks fall into this category with forensic odontologists. I was on a committee that just recently set out a report, National Academy of Sciences Committee, on considering the future of forensic science. It's called A Path Forward. And what we did is we criticized those areas of forensic science because, well, let me give you an example. I compare footprints, and I take my footprint from the crime scene, and I take the footprint from a known person, and I do comparisons. And what I'm looking for not only is what the shape of the sole is, which we call a class characteristic, because that's what's manufactured. I'm also looking for all those little accidental and incidental scratches and scrapes and inclusions on the bottom of that sole, which have traditionally by forensic scientists or forensic science been considered unique. So we call them unique characteristics or individualizing characteristics. Well, the problem is, it's not that you can't do the comparison. The problem is what's the rarity of that comparison? How do you know? Is that 1 in a million? Is it 1 in 10? People who have been testifying to this for decades or a century simply say that they're unique. They came from that shoe. But there's no underlying databases or science to prove that. So this is what's coming under fire. The same is true with fingerprints. Nobody really doubts that fingerprints are unique. But what happens when you take a partial print from a crime scene and match it up to a print on a fingerprint card taken at a police station, there's a world of difference. This fingerprint from the crime scene can have all sorts of non-clarity to it. And so it's not going to be a complete fingerprint. It's going to be a partial fingerprint. So how do you determine statistics from that? Nobody has ever done it. And in fact, the fingerprint community says, we don't want to do that. We believe that they're unique. And so this becomes a problem in the courts. The courts say, well, tell me, is that really unique or not? Give me a statistic. And there are no statistics available for that.